So one of the first things I'd like to call your attention to is how to use Conte properly. Okay? I had an excellent teacher. Actually, I had two really good teachers about this. So I'm going to repeat to you what was taught to me, and then you can try it on for size, and then you'll have to decide ultimately what's right for you and your style, because there's lots of different ways to do things. And you'll notice once I show you how to do this, and if you go to one of the open houses at one of the really great art colleges, like let's say you go down to the open house at Sheridan or OCADU, and you look at the life drawing, and you'll see some of the people that their figure drawings are just so gorgeous. They've mastered this. And this is something that Jordan mentioned, right? Sometimes there's a crisp line, sometimes there's fuzzy lines. Garth has been getting at this too. And there's different ways we might use our tools, but there's some ways that are more effective than others. But this is really effective, I think. All right, so when you get your new stick, it's often warped if you look at it. Like if I try to draw a line with this, does it contact evenly? Usually not. They have a bit of a warp to them. And when we also get it, we see that it's shiny. It's got a little bit of a wax coating on it, which is supposed to keep your fingers clean, but so what? They end up black anyway. And so one of the problems with the wax coating is it won't smoothly contact on the page. It kind of resists. And you can see how I'm getting a warp there. Do you see how there's like scratches? So one of the things we need to do, and this is also really big, it's almost too long. So most people break them. And I find it's handy to break it, not necessarily into half, but maybe 2/3, 1/3. So I have a bigger length and a smaller length if I ever do want something smaller to get into a smaller shape. And also one of the things that's good about breaking is you get rid of the warp. So you may want to look at it to see where on this stick should I best break it. Maybe about there to get rid of some of the warp. And so one of the first important things you got to do is you don't just pick it up and start drawing with it. You have to prime your stick and get it ready for drawing. It's kind of like sharpening your pencil. We have to take all of that wax off and any of the warp out. So what you want to do when you get your new stick is rub all sides down just on a scrap piece of paper, or you could have a piece of fine sandpaper if you want. It does it faster. So we need to rub it until it contacts evenly. So you can see it's still grabbing too much on one side. So that if you're trying to go around and make a lovely shadow, you're getting a line where you don't necessarily want it, right? So we have to do this. And we want to do it on every side so that no matter how you pick it up, you're going to have, because it's going to roll in your fingers as you draw, you're going to have even contact, no slipperiness because of wax, and no warpage. So every time you get a new stick, you do that. And from time to time, if you look at a stick that's been used for a while, they get really worn down and kind of rounded. So every once in a while, you need to rub it again to keep its shape. And I want to do this for every once in a while so they keep a nice sharp edge down the side, okay? You can tell if you're holding the Conte really in the best way by how your stick wears down as you're using it. So I'm going to share a secret with you that her name was Hannah Trefeld, the college teacher. And I'm going to show you what she showed me. We don't hold it like a pencil. We don't hold it overhanded like this. And we don't draw with it the way we usually do with pencil. So what we want to have happen is to keep this thing rectangular, to be able to have it really do a nice job. So you see what Jordan Massingale was doing some drawings for us. You see these nice drawings that Jordan was doing. They've got these very soft forms. In other places, some nice strong line and thin lines, all different kinds of lines, all with one tool. It's wonderful what you can do with this one little tiny stick, that huge variety of lines, just by a change of an angle or pressure, or changing to a different corner of the stick. All right, so I want to keep my stick a rectangle, and I'm going to, for a particular reason. So here's my Conte stick. And So I want to be able to draw with it so that I can keep this square end, okay? Somebody's calling me, and I'm going to have to ignore them. So I want to keep it this shape so that it can give me all kinds of different lines. And here's a drawing I did when I was with the lady in France. Another Hannah Bendoff, the one that made sure that we had our hands straight when we were sight measuring. And she was the one who kind of helped take what Hannah Trefeld had taught me and take it another step further. She said there's at least 10 kinds of lines. I think there's many more, but she said you had to at least better have 10 different kinds of lines in your drawing. So one of the things, she said that there's black lines that range from thin and crisp to, thick and strong and all the way to fuzzy, but they're all black. And she said, and all of that you could do with this little stick of Conte if you used it well. So you could do thin and crisp. And then you could do strong and black to stronger still, and then getting from the strength of the crisp to strong to softer but black and wider and black, right, and fuzzy. So that's what she was getting at. So she said you got to have those and then the same lines but in grays. So could I do thin and crisp in gray, ranging to stronger, but in grays. So when we have low contrast, and then fuzzy gray. Right? So we can get a huge range. And then we'd want to be able to change from any of these at one time, like just as we change, as we go. So to be able to get these, we need to hold the tool in a very specific way. We need to pinch it overhanded like this. And so my one teacher who went to OCA, she said, you want to think of it as if you're going to drag your knuckles on the page. And that she said, and you better have short nails, which I forgot to cut my fingernails. So she said, if you want to do art, goodbye fingernails. So they're usually dirty at least, right? So you need to be able to pinch it. So what we want to be able to do here is to get onto the corner. So we can draw with the corner. And so one of the things I used to see the students doing, if we were life drawing, they'd take their Conte and it would get worn down. That's one reason why I wanted to see some of your tools. So if we look at this one, do we see some of these? Do you see? Zoom in on that, Christian. They're worn down to a point, and you can tell that somebody's been drawing with it kind of like a pencil or a charcoal stick, just like that. And what you ideally want is to keep it in a rectangular shape instead of allowing it to wear down to a point. So my one teacher, she was really strict about this. She'd be upset with us if she saw this happening. So now, it doesn't matter. I don't care if I'm upset or not upset. What I want for you guys is that you can get some nice quality to your line drawings, right? And so, let me see. I think that one was yours. This one was yours.
They're both ours anyways.
Are they? Okay.
He borrowed one of mine.
Oh, okay. So if I want thin and crisp, I'm going to use a corner. And some of the students at Sheridan, I remember seeing them like sticking their Conte underneath their drawing stool and cracking it off, taking a knife and trying to crack it off. So as soon as it got worn down to a stub and it's round, break it off so it's a nice crisp, hard edge again. I find nothing like a nice new stick. So I have that edge. So to get a nice crisp thin line, I want a crisp corner. So I can draw with my corner. I can draw with this edge. So when I want a stronger line that I can push harder on, I can draw with the edge turned this way. If I want an interesting line that kind of changes as it goes, I can draw with this front edge and drag my drawing tool like that. So that's one reason why I want to keep the whole stick sharp. And then if I want to draw maybe a fuzzy line, I can draw with this whole side and dragging it vertically like that. And you see I get a fuzzy line. I could draw with this edge but push down sideways instead of vertically, so I can get really strong lines like that, right? And then of course I can turn the stick flat on its side and turn it to different angles, right? So that I can get it to do big, broad areas of shadow and soft areas. So what I want to get you guys all to do is to first start with this, prime your stick first, and then try out the different edges. I want you to get some from crisp through to fuzzy and practice doing it black, and then practice doing it in gray, soft tones, right? And then I'm going to show you some nuance. There's some wonderful tricks you can do with this to just have a beautiful, beautiful drawing. So I'm going to show you some of that. But first we have to just get the sense of how to use it. And so what I want to show you is that we want to be able to go from the corner to the side, down onto the side of it. I want to be able to drag it this way to that, up onto the point. I'm always going to be changing my pressure as I go in response to what I'm seeing or in response to what I'm wanting out of my creative drawing, whether I want to bring something forward or push it back. So let's play with this stuff a bit so that you can be sort of aware of this when you're drawing tonight in the figure drawing class. So and if you don't pinch it like this, and always keep it where it's kind of flat to the page and all you have to do is tilt onto the tip or onto the edge, you will wear it down like a pencil. So try to avoid holding it like that or like this. Pinch it like that. So these two fingers are bent there. And it's going to behave beautifully for you, and you will see a difference in your drawing. So it's very different from drawing with a pencil. And that's where, too, we're moving a lot from the shoulder joint and the wrist to get all this change, right? Okay, so let's play with that. So she was saying that we're learning to do these because when we look at something, and if we're going to draw it in line work, that different edges appear to have different qualities to them. And then she was basing this on observation. One of the things that you're going to learn about in animation is that we need to have a sense of line work that conveys depth and that conveys action too, right? So like Jordan was talking about the compression of the fingers as they bend and things like that, or tension at the knuckles, things like this. So what kind of line would we use for that? Plus we were learning about, the perspective of the room for the animation portfolio, how you need to have a sense of atmospheric perspective. So you want to be able to show that something's in front and something else is behind. I think Jordan also mentioned what if somebody was laying down, or it was a pose where one leg was back, right? That leg at the back would be a very faint, soft line, so it sort of falls away. And if somebody's, throwing a spear or something, the hand coming forward needs to be a bold, thicker line, so that where the action is and where something's forward, it's going to be a thicker line. So that's one way to use line. Another way is to observe what is the quality of the edge. Does it appear to be a really crisply well-defined edge, or does it appear kind of fuzzy and dark? Can I see it well? Is it a soft contrast or a strong contrast? So that we can look at and observe this, what kind of line would we use? So it's kind of like line work is kind of an artist's shorthand. And Conte is one of the best tools to do that with. So, and I want to show you also over the week how I would draw with charcoal versus Conte. So we can hold charcoal overhanded, but in a slightly different way than we would Conte. Conte is kind of hard, but it's still soft enough that it grabs nicely and shades beautifully. But it's hard enough that it keeps its edge, and we want that. If we want a soft drawing and a fluid line that's very blendable, then we might decide to pick up charcoal instead. And I could show you what would we do with that compared. You guys did some life drawing the last few weeks, and have you noticed sometimes that there's these lovely shadow areas? Sometimes you seem to have a crisp edge, sometimes very soft. So for example, let's say I want to draw around a figure, and I want a crisp edge because the person's in highlight. I could put my Conte on the side and lean on one edge. And I could draw around a figure. And then shade that in. So I can get a highlight edge that's really crisp, but a soft shading away from it. So to get a line like that, we put the tool flat against the side and we lean on the index finger. So this is where we're not pinching it, we're now leaning like that. And we're leaning on one edge more than the other. This is also really nice where you see one edge strongly defined, but then it's shaded softly around the form of an arm or something. So you see how you can get an edge where you're not drawing an outline first necessarily and shading it in. You have this broad line that's a gradation. And if your stick has been worn down where it's not warped, you won't have that drag line. You'll just have a nice shading. Can you try that? Can you get it to do this gradation by just leaning more heavily on one end than the other? But I want the whole thing making a nice shade. So more like right flat down, the whole stick in contact, lean on the index finger, not the middle finger. And you get this lovely shade. Ah, very nice. Isn't that nice? So that your line is a big shadow, but with a crisp edge to it. Isn't that neat? How nice would that be for figure drawing, right? So you see how this one tool can do a lot when you use it effectively. So you shouldn't really be, here's my outline and then I shade it in. You can. But how wonderful if you could just draw one line. And so then you see how artists can get so much in like a couple of minutes. And it's like, how did they do that? Right? So look at that. Do you see what I could do with that? From thick and strong to soft. Isn't that awesome? And like that. That's why this is used for figure drawing. So you kind of got to get used to it. So, all right. So if we could do that, that's pretty cool. So let's imagine we're figure drawing, or even, we were learning about drawing our hands and things, right? So what if I want to draw even a portion of my hand? I might want to draw some wrinkles here and a shadow, tendons there. I got a soft shadow on this side. Getting on top of other things here. So let's see. So what I want you to try to do now is to go from a crisp edge down to a strong one, tilt down, make a soft line, lighten up maybe, push down, go onto the side, and keep changing your line as you go. And just play with all of that. And then look at the cool ribbon kind of marks it can make too. So can you change your line from crisp to dark, to fuzzy, to light, to really fuzzy, to a big, bold, broad shadow area? So play with it. You might take another whole page and just see how you can make it change from one to another and back again. So you're always changing the angle, you're always changing the pressure. And this would be in response to what you're seeing, of course. I want to invite you to just try one thing, though, since we're on the topic of Conte. It can make the coolest textures, too. If we think of it instead of, we're used to picking up our pens and pencils and just dragging them across the page. Instead of thinking of it maybe as a brush almost, or a tool that could just make really cool textures. So Conte is uniquely great for making interesting textures and what artists call mark making. Now I know that you guys are more into animation and they're less into that whole thing. Fine artists really love this. You know, I'm going to take some ink and drip it and draw with that. But sometimes it's good to borrow from other disciplines to just help us be a little bit creative and see how we could create some interesting textures when we're creating our characters and our backgrounds. So what if we allowed ourselves to play with this? What kind of textures could you make this do? If you think of it as a mark-making tool, what could you do? Just go play with it right now, right on the same sheet even. What kind of interesting, if you use this in an unusual way, not just drag it across the page the way you normally would, what could you get it to do? Try using it differently. Push you to be creative. What can you make it do? Okay, yeah, that's cool. Its square shape helps you do something. So let's think, how can you use it really unusually? Not like you normally would. Don't drag it across the page. Don't shade with it. What could you make it do? That's good, Nina. You're onto something. How would you use your tool in an unusual way, not the typical way?
Like scrape it off.
Well, that's one way, but I'm not saying that. We're going to make a mark with this square stick. What can it do? Be creative here. Push yourselves to get outside of your box.
What do you mean a box?
It's a box. What can you make it do that's outside of the box? It's not a pencil. Because part of being a great creator is being creative, doing things in unusual ways, coming up with a new way of making a character. Like some of these artists Garth's been showing you. They didn't do what everybody did. They did it differently. So here's a challenge for you. Okay, that's kind of neat. Look what Nina's doing. She decided to roll it. What does it do if I roll it? Okay, so she's on to something. What else could you do if you think of I'm going to use my tool in a different way? What else could this stick do? Yeah, you could. Now, if we did that, what if we did that more than just making dots? This thing is square. What can I do with it? I could stamp with it, yep. And it makes little squares, isn't it? It makes a mark. Let's say we were creating, I don't know, a snake with scales. This is one of our characters. We could make a print like this. So if I could make little marks like this, and this could be my shading, right? The scales, it's a fish. And doesn't that look more interesting than maybe just making little shaded marks? What else could you make it do? If it can print and you can roll it, what else could you do? Use it in an unusual way. What can it do? Okay, that's cool. What if I twist it? Yeah. Makes little bow-tied pastas. So some of the time when we're creating, we want to push ourselves to do something in a different way. It's part of what artists do. And you can make a series of marks for your shading. And you could maybe say, you know, what does this make me think of? Like, look at that. Isn't that cool? Try it. I could shade a mountain with that. I could decide this is scales on the spiny marks on the edge of a dragon character. Who knows, right? Creative inspiration can come from anywhere, and sometimes it can come from our tools and using them in weird ways. Like I said, I did a whole painting with a fork and a spatula, right? Sometimes pushing ourselves to work in unusual ways can help us be more creative, and then our ideas can flow, right? So, and plus you make just the coolest looking drawings. Like, isn't that neat? Yeah. So here's another one that I learned from a student, and I just thought it was brilliant. It never occurred to me to do that. I gave the students at Sheridan in craft and design, we had this beautiful black and white photo that we cut up into different sections. And each week, the students had to copy that section using a different technique. So this one week, it was a buildup of marks using Conte. You had to copy this, and we had this, it was a picture of an old man, really wrinkly skin. And see, this student, I loved what she did. She rolled the Conte, nice square new piece of Conte, in her fingers like this, in crisscrossy marks. And if you try that with the new end, up close to yourself, you try that, and my gosh, it looks exactly like old wrinkled skin. And this drawing she did, it was beautiful. And it looked so cool and creative and easy to do, but looked better than almost anything you could draw with just your pencil point. Unless maybe you're somebody kind of intense like David Caesar. So it's actually rolling it like this. You see those little marks it makes? So, imagine if you added some of this to your repertoire of lines when you're figure drawing. Every once in a while, what if I just rolled my stick? Or, oh, that's a really cool crease there. I'm going to just use my stick a little bit differently. Like, what if I rolled and dragged? Like, that's cool. So we get outside of our normal way of making marks and look at how wonderful a mark can be. So Conte shouldn't be thought of like a pencil, okay? So if you just at least go away with that, off to art school, your life drawing will be much better as a result. Okay, so that's good. And so when you see here this drawing she had me do, one of the things she looked at, she was trying to tell us, look, on the underside near the shadow, we have a strong dark shadow. It's got one edge that's crisp, the other edge is fuzzy. And as it goes away, it gets fuzzier and fuzzier. There's contact shadows underneath the fruit that are fairly strong, but as you go away, it starts to fade. You've got, I think it was a green apple, light-colored flesh against light-colored flesh, right? The green outside compared to the beige inside, and we have very low contrast. Upper edge of the plate, so it was a white plate against a white cloth background, fairly gray. There's sometimes, like this glass container, there's sometimes you don't see an edge. You don't draw it. If you can't see it, don't draw it. The eye will complete it. You see how undersides are darker generally. Upper sides tend to be lighter. And as you really get going well with figure drawing, you'll start to notice that, take your hand in front of you right now and kind of push it like this, where you're in tension. Do you see how the top parts of your knuckles get all shiny and stretched, right? And if you put a strong light on that, that would be a crisp line. And then there's the parts that are all bent and fleshy, right? Look inside. They're darker. There's strong creases between the fingers when you bend them that are dark lines. There's all these soft, sort of fuzzy, fleshy parts. So that even just in your hand, there's lots of different kinds of lines. And then there's the big, broad, shaded areas where you might use the side of your Conte, right? So those are things I want you to think about tonight, okay? So let's get cleaned up, and then we're going to shift modes into object drawing, okay? I will come back to, at another time, how to use other drawing tools, because Jordan mentioned that, how to use your pencil in a more economical way. So we'll kind of do this a little bit at a time. So this was Conte, good for you tonight. Then we'll get into pencil and how we can make it do some more interesting things for us, okay? All right, so let's wash up our mess. Then we're going to need to get out our colored pencils, at least the light blue and dark blue color erase, or the searching, finding yellow, green, red, whatever, right? Okay, let's get organized for that.